thank you so much for coming back after lunch to talk about a topic that seems for many far removed from the television realities you work in and live in. And it also is a topic that it was hyped immensely last year and then sort of fell through this year in many different ways. So investments stopping, platforms closing, big questions. And still, we think it's a super important topic to discuss. And it's the metaverse. Now, I've been in online digital innovation events for 30 years. What happens when something is hyped and then goes down, but the people behind it still think it's super interesting? They basically change the wording, right? So this year, what do you call it? We don't call it metaverse anymore, it's spatial computing or virtual reality. Something else, it happens all the time, because we do feel something is happening in the sphere that is interesting to talk about in this setting. Now, first, let me introduce my guest. Melanie Moore, right on the end, worked for big UK TV companies, a metaverse expert in her own right. I'm not speaking on behalf of those companies, but just could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Melanie Möller. I have more than 13 years experience of working for large media companies, including the BBC and Sky. I've also worked for rapidly growing startups and led teams as part of those, especially when the creator economy was emerging. And yeah, it's great to be here today.
Thank you, welcome. Cathy Bremme, Head of Innovation for France TV. Tell us a little bit more about what your daily work is at France TV.
So my daily work is to try to do the link between the old TV world and the new digital world, and it's not always simple. I'm coming from a fine arts background and linguistics and art history, so nothing to do with journalism or with innovation, but now I'm here and I think I'm quite able to speak different languages and to make people understand what's happening.
It's an interesting thing that in the field of innovation, you find many people like what I did, art school and literature, so there you go. And then here, Vesa Apo, Metaverse lead for IE, the Finnish broadcaster in the innovation field. First describe what you do and then we'll have a little clip and then we're going to talk. There you go.
Yeah, so thank you. As Cathy mentioned about the art background, we just during the lunch realized that we also had an art background. I have been working for Yle for a long time and I did children's games, and at some point this metaverse word came and I want to be that guy, and now I'm the metaverse lead of company. Basically realized that gaming, it has a lot of stigma, metaverse has a lot of hype, so...
Yeah, we'll discuss what's going on. And I think now is a good moment to show a short clip
of your
work, and then we'll talk what's happening there. Can we see the clip?
Yeah, the clip is titled Metaverse is Here.
And with time. You have to explain what's happening here.
So last December we did a little experiment. It was like less than 10K experiment. We created an Independence Day party for Finnish children and we were expecting maybe 100 kids to come up there. There's two characters, avatars in black suits, and we were hoping to shake hands with the visitors, but like we were expecting 100 and got 24K visitors in 3 hours. And we were really not anticipating like to be successful. It was just an Yle Innovations normal experiment with a little bit of money and hope something interesting happens.
And this was actually connected to a TV program, right? This is a TV program where people normally couldn't get in the palace and the fancy and so forth. And
the president hosts Independence Day ball every Independence Day in December, and to get in you have to be an important person in the society and maybe an old one, and the young ones are usually not invited. So we invited them.
Now, to give you a little bit of background, I spoke to one of the developers of Unreal Engine last week, and he said, did you know that every day on Roblox more messages are being exchanged than on WhatsApp? I mean, this is this is much bigger than you realize if you're not in it. And the in it is important, you know, it's not something with VR glasses. It is an experience that you can visit and move around in. And just yesterday, there was a big announcement of Google, it was AI, but also they announced that they were working with Google and Adobe are working together on a geospatial API, and 3D maps, and this is the real world being made 3D so you can move around in it. This idea that we now have a digital space where you can meet and interact and have conversations and play games and watch things, that for the people that enjoy it is just as real and important as some of the physical space. That's, I think, what's underlying this whole development. I mean, if you're in it and you like it, whether it be games, it's real, right?
I think that's
yeah, go ahead.
That's really interesting that you're mentioning here how consumer behaviors, especially when we are thinking about younger generations, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are changing, and you know how interactions and relationship building is actually happening on those platforms such as Roblox, Fortnite, Decentraland. So I think that's really interesting when we try to dive into changing need states that actually underpin the metaverse economy.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's exactly why we went there, because when you see that your children too, fortunately, they spend a quarter of their time on gaming platforms, and it's not to play games, but to interact and just to hang out together. They are the new social media, they are the new cinema, and so for us public service broadcaster, we need to think about it and try out things and how we can be.
But of course, for a broadcaster, it is a mysterious and complicated world, because interaction on mass scale with big group of people, children even, where you don't control what they say to each other, how they interact with each other, you control what's going on in those worlds. What have you tried out for France Television? What was the project that you thought, like, oh, let's try this out?
For us, it was really interesting. During the pandemic, we relearned that we have to interact with our audience, because we totally forgot this kind of stuff during our carpet bombing and just serving our programs to people, not thinking without, and perhaps also with our omniscient journalists who know everything. And now the younger generations, they really want to interact with our content and perhaps even co-create and co-construct. So we are working on 3 topics. We worked about sports, because sports is really engaging content by nature. So we tried out something in the social media platform via chat.
Unfortunately closed down by Microsoft recently, so that's one of those problems.
That was Altspace.
Oh, that was Altspace VR. Oh, VR tested there. Altspace VR is gone. Yeah. No, but the really big thing was
But there are a lot of platforms dying because there are no people on it, but that's why you're going to Roblox. So we tried out something like this, and why we did this, what was the objective? It's to give access to people, to places and to things and to people where they cannot get in real life. And we also think about sports, for example, for the Paralympics, so even for disabled people in the metaverse where you do not have any physical rules. They can do things they cannot do in real life, because that's really interesting for us, to create something, not just to copy reality, but to create experiences you cannot do in real life. And with our content and with our rights we have too, on different contents we can try this. So sports, culture, you can put a lot of much more people to a virtual concert with Jean-Michel Jarre than in real life. And even you can put them in the Cathedral Notre Dame, so what you cannot do in real life because it's under renovation now. And the third content we tried out is also with fiction, with fictional content around a TV series Vortex, and that's a nice thing, very sustainable. We already had the virtual set, because we already have the virtual background for the TV series. We just use it also in the game, and we ask the principal actor to play some little things so that the audience could just interact with the series, with the content in the real space, the same space we use for the TV series.
we'll go dive a little bit deeper into these use cases, but just to define, what do you guys feel is the metaverse, or what is the space that we're talking about? Because last year, of course, the big hype was Mark Zuckerberg and VR glasses and legless avatars moving around in pretty badly designed spaces. That was where billions of dollars have gone. I mean, that was a big effort that was made, and that seems to now fizzle completely. It was amazing.
Our money.
So what is it? What for all three of you? What's the definition? What is the space we're talking about?
I have, my definition is that I never want to define it because that's really stupid, like waste of time. Like you just saw, like those 24,000, and actually 40% of them were adults, like grown-ups, 18 plus. I don't think they kind of define metaverse when they rush into there.
No. So you just, the word can go, it's just something
yeah, just
about...
use it in your like pitches, and then like, of course you need to sometimes like say, what do I mean with
But it is not, because that's I think one of the things that got a lot of people confused. It doesn't have to be something where you have to put your VR glasses on.
Exactly. Roblox can be played on mobile, on consoles and PC.
Yeah, but that was just what Mark Zuckerberg wanted to sell us, because he just wanted to handle both the devices, so the headset and the platform and the App Store and our data, so that did not work out. So what works out are gaming platforms for the moment. That is where people are.
Yeah. And so Roblox is already mentioned. What other platforms do you consider?
Fortnite too, Vertigo, Minecraft, everywhere where you
those
can
are the big three, I think, right? And then you have the more specialized ones.
Where you can have social interaction in a 3D place, so you do not need any VR headset, but you have this kind of collective experience and in a persistent world.
So it depends to have a collective experience, be in a virtual space at the same time with other people and have a chance to interact with them. That's actually good.
Yeah, and even if I'm not there, the world continues.
Yeah, it's a
not like a TV program.
Yeah, it's a permanent virtual world that you can visit when you want and that other people can also visit. So it could also be almost a website where you see who else is on the website. What do you think, Melanie?
As a technologist by trade, I think it's also quite important to mention that spatial computing is also underpinned by the connectivity of the web and uses all these great capabilities that the connected, or as we're moving into a world of the decentralized web, provide us with. So I usually like to break down the metaverse into three areas. The first one is what you guys already mentioned, the consumer metaverse, which is all about entertainment, digital assets, commerce. The next one is the enterprise metaverse, and then we have seen during the pandemic many companies adopting virtual meetings. You can now send your avatar on Teams to a meeting. You might have used it. Mine looks a bit silly, to be honest. And then
people use it once. I mean, that's a little bit of a problem as well. You can use it once. Fine. Okay. Go on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Only once. At the industrial metaverse, so we have seen massive brands already running virtual factories such as Siemens, such as Mars, who have virtualized or digitized their entire production processes when we think about creating digital twins, for example. So that would be my breakdown.
Yeah, and maybe it's interesting to comment that underlying this option to whether it be commercial or whether it's for education or whether it's just for entertainment, this idea that the world can be also recorded in points in space. And there also we see some companies doing really big things. I mean, the guy that started the Google services, where you can just look around and see everything, is the guy that founded Niantic of Pokemon Go. Now, Pokemon Go is a game, but it's also a service that has millions of people all over the world tracking where they are and gathering information all the time. Even the Teslas with their lidars roaming around Earth are tracking everything that's there all the time. So there's these clouds of data are appearing right now that have a physical place. And some of that's now going into entertainment services, but they're also really going to be used for all kinds of other services, as you say.
I'm glad that you mentioned Niantic because that's really interesting what they are doing. It's just not yet like super usable, but they already have like service out there that you can try out, like this Niantic Cloud.
Yeah, and they have an API where you can...
You can tap into that vast amount of three-dimensional data around us. Like it's
No, I think the Google and Adobe thing can be seen in that same thing. That who has the data of the whole world and where everything is? So on the one hand, really big companies like that, and then you have those, fictional worlds that are, for instance, Fortnite, and I'm sure most people know, but Fortnite is part of Epic Games. They also have the Unreal Engine. They have a whole list of services that is going very deep into the media industry right now. So if you talk about virtual production, all those virtual sets you see projected on the screen in 3D and it moves around while an actor standing in front of it, almost all of them are made by Unreal Engine, on the game engine. And as you mentioned, if you think of television, there's series that run for 10 years where people, check Friends or How I Met Your Mother. There's spaces that people know that are almost part of collective memory that could also be online space. So there's something happening in that sphere of, if you build up a really interesting online virtual space, people might want to go meet there, right?
I want to follow that. That's kind of where I started my journey towards metaverse. I realized that all virtual productions are basically metaverse productions, and if they're done with the Unreal Engine, you can just drag and drop that into Fortnite. So it's more like the production pipeline nowadays to do metaverse production is so easy that it almost should be utilized for that reason. But later on, moved away from the technical sides and more towards the content sides. But the 3D is kind of the core, I think, here, is that all the assets are usable for all like AR, VR, metaverse.
And the whole marketplace is online already, where you can say buy 3D trees, things, whatever.
So I think,
go
on the point of virtual production, I think what is really interesting is also that it shifts the budget from post-production to actually investing in a virtual studio, and that's one-off investment, and then any cost or spending on the productions are much more predictable for media companies because you don't have the problem anymore that you need lots of extras for, to create a big crowd. And then let's say, I live in the UK, it rains all the time, then it rains, and then they have to come for another day and you have to pay them. You can easily project everything onto, obviously, a big sphere or screen. I don't know if you have seen, for example, the making of the Mandalorian, and the lights can be adjusted, any mountain ranges can be moved by the click of a button, so it's much easier, and it also gives artists much more creative freedom, or your director of photography on set.
Yeah, it's a completely different, I follow this as well, the virtual production side of things. All over Europe, these studios are now turning up with huge screens, even some with screens. There's a big one in Berlin, there's a few in the UK, there's small ones in the Netherlands. But
so are they LED screens or windows to the metaverse?
Exactly, assets for the metaverse. Now, that's a little bit technical background, but I want to come back to you because you stress this co-creation idea. So there's also something happening with the audience that is different than it was 10 years ago, for sure. So could you explain the co-creation that you wanted to stress?
When you are in an XR space, you are part of the story because you need to interact with the content, otherwise there's nothing happening. You are not just because in front of the screen in a passive way looking to something. And we are seeing this more and more, and as I say, really during the pandemic, people came to see us and really to interact with us. Can you help us with this topic? Can you explain this? And we really transformed a little bit more to some kind of partner and more the gatekeeper we were before. And especially younger generations want to co-create content with us, and the metaverse is really a place where we can meet together, we can try out things, not in a too expensive way neither.
And if you say co-create content, because sometimes, millions of people talking to each other all the time, they love their own content, there's almost nothing you have to do. mean they just talk to each other. If you talk about co-create content together with a content provider, what do they create? What is being made together with the audience?
There are a lot of creative stuff to do, and we are looking a lot, or I'm looking a lot for luxury brands because they are doing this and they understood this really well. Because you can have a luxury brand and then you just give it to young people and they can just create something with your brand. So let it be new clothes or something like this. But for us it can be, I just give you our brand, I don't know, Vortex, and just try yourself to create something with it, to put it on TikTok, just do something with our friend. And that's not in our nature. That's not at all in our DNA. Normally we are protecting our brands and we are not giving them away. But in this kind of XR universe, we really can build something together.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it in a second, but this wave of AI coming where people can pull together all kinds of assets and mix them up and make their own dances, music, whatever. You studied a little bit what the younger generation wants as well. What is your idea about?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but I'll try and keep it short. So what I've been observing is that younger generations, they're definitely not all about glossy content, so that might be a bit of a shock to some of you. They're all about authentic, homegrown, short-form content, short-form and mobile first. And they're really eager to create and also to create essentially their own IP and to monetize their content. And that's really the behaviors that we see driving the new creator economy. And that's also what is driving sort of create to earn models and co-creation, as you just mentioned, giving these creators a stake in it. So that's obviously quite spicy when we think about the models, the current models of most media companies, because, you know, how do media outlets actually react to it and connect more with these younger consumers who want to create? And I think what you mentioned is an absolutely brilliant example.
Now, when we talk about the existing platforms where people hang out, who understand how they work and like hanging out there, talking about Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. For all three of you as media companies, this means you are active on somebody else's platform. There's obviously risk involved there, because if they change the rules, then you're out again. Have any of your organization ever thought about building something yourself? Like the sad case of the European Commission, who had something, a 3D world built to organize a party and nobody took it up. And what are your considerations there?
I'm quite allergic to that discussion, so if someone opens up the topic, I'm probably not going to hear the rest of it. It's just silly for me at the moment. So of course that's a good question, and that's an important question, but I mean, we wouldn't have that 24K users rushing with their fancy clothes on into our celebration.
So you just have to go where the people are.
I mean, like, last December, that was the decision. I think that was the right decision.
Yeah. For France Television, same thing.
It's a little bit the same. It's as if 10 years ago we would have said we will do our own Facebook. It's not, we are not able to do this. We always have tech people in my house too, who want to create their own metaverse, but I just try to stop them from doing it and just tell them, go there where the people are. And yes, it's difficult for us because we are public service broadcasters, we have some values, we need to have some regulation, we need to protect our audiences, we cannot put them somewhere on a platform where we cannot handle what's happening to them. But we try to negotiate with those platforms a little bit. We are beginning to do it.
Have to admit that the relations of media companies, especially news organizations with Facebook, have not been very, I mean, some of them betted too much on that as a business model and then found out they could be, that business model could get destroyed easily. I want to open it up to the room and then move back to you guys about AI and things happening in that sphere. Who has a question? Feel free, don't be shy. Nobody? I mean, I always have enough questions, but somebody in the back there? Oh, yeah, somebody here. Can I have one of the mics? Yes. I'll come to you. There you go.
Minecraft will be included in metaverse. Because when I see my kids, they're actually living in this Minecraft and they're actually talking between each other and they're actually living in a second world at that moment. So how is this going to be?
All right, it's two questions actually, because one is it open and accessible, and the other is it proprietary or open source. Those are, and there's a big battle going on there as well, right? There's attempts to make interesting open source world, but there's a lot of proprietary stuff there. Okay.
Let's use this one. Yeah. So I think that the blockchain Web3 decentralization is kind of the promise of figuring out the way, so it's not like proprietary. But when it comes to those platforms, there's also the interoperability issue being discussed at the moment. So I guess, I mean, yeah, it's a good question again. I kind of feel that if some platform like Outspace disappeared, then which the platform, if some platform has like a toxic culture that we can't actually cooperate with, then we just don't use the platform. So I kind of see it in that way. So likely the competition keeps the platforms kind of safe, hopefully.
There are attempts around the world, for instance, by cities to build up digital twins, not just for city maintenance services and intelligence, but also as sort of spaces where people could gather that are much more open and open source oriented. But the present platforms, as far as I know, most of them are very much commercially organized.
There's also, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just quickly, like the 3D, the technical stuff is open source, right? So you can build the platforms using quite advanced open source solutions.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we also see an open metaverse initiative in, the spirit of obviously it being a decentralized or hoping for it to be completely decentralized. So there's Lamina 1, for example, that is obviously spearheaded by Neil Stephenson, who coined the term metaverse. And their intention is to open it up to developers to build their own worlds and have it not be controlled and all the data essentially being owned by a large company. And I think it's really interesting when we're thinking about how can media companies access those platforms. Obviously, the first option is, as mentioned, you can just partner with Sandbox or Decentraland or Roblox. But we are also seeing more and more plug-and-play models emerging. So I personally have been super excited about the Alibaba and Avalanche partnership, although obviously, Alibaba and China, that's another conversation. But being able to have a Cloudverse launchpad that already comes with technical capabilities that are really useful, so cloud computing, AI, and gives the scalability so that companies can come and build their own metaverses, run in the cloud, and get the data analytics back, I think is really exciting. So that's something we should be leaning into, I would say.
Other questions from the room? What do you think at the moment, not talking about your own projects, but are the most interesting media projects in this sphere, whether they call metaverse or not? I mean, there's a lot happening in Fortnite. There's a game engine, so a lot of brands are moving in there, Balenciagas and everything as well. But what about the media companies? And brands seem to be more active than media companies on the whole right now.
I'm mostly I'm thinking about journalism quite a bit. In a way, I'm not a journalist. My background is like I said, arts, but I think that public broadcasters is kind of journalism, kind of the core. So how do we use metaverse to our advantage in that way? And I think spatial journalism is interesting. How do we use like three-dimensional media to convey a story? And there has been done some I think really awesome experiments on that. How can we bring those stories to platforms where there are users? How can we talk with them? So I think that's interesting, how do we bring this public service value into this equation? And I think we are quite close to doing that.
So the recreation of a certain setting where news has taken place. This one.
To set on this, last week, I've seen Ivan Shapiro, which is the big guru of
Snapchat's founder.
mapping, and he told us that yes, the first broadcaster who goes to the metaverse doing news there will be the king. So
Yeah?
they just
Oh, the trend watcher Shapiro just described it. Okay, something else in mind.
and we were thinking about this too. And today people are going to TikTok or to Twitch to have their news consumption. Perhaps tomorrow they are just leading this in the metaverse, because there are a lot of content already on entertainment, a lot of brand content, but perhaps there's still a place for public service media and to do some news, not the old-fashioned way we are doing it today, but in the new way, in the way of the platform, in the next interactive way, to explain, to educate, still to have our public service mission, but in another form.
Now, some of the things we discuss here as well are about things coming and what might happen, which is logical when you have a new technology, and in this case a technology that needs to combine various modalities and audiences and Web3 or not and so forth. But also be interesting to talk a little bit about what is happening now as a result of what's happening in the AI field. Because now suddenly you can start with generating pictures and text and video and 3D worlds. I mean, it's going that fast. It's like click, 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 you don't pay attention 2 weeks and the world has changed again. For all three of you, what do you think is happening now that will make all the difference?
I think AI and metaverse come really close because metaverse is vast. It needs a lot of content, and there's like not the ability to, even if all the kids are doing it, it's still difficult. So we need a lot of AI assisted stuff. But at the same time, like if you think about YouTube, which is already 18 years old, when it came, my colleagues were like, a lot of people in the industry were looking at, hey, look at that, like how lousy production values, that must be a plastic lens on that webcam and stuff like that. But still the content, the stories that they were telling. And now there are stories that AI enhances that image quality to like 4K in a way that it makes it somehow better. It's still like
Better than real life.
Yeah, but on the metaverse there is kind of an actual need to do AI enhanced storytelling, I would say, because of 3D asset creation is really, really difficult. It requires quite a lot of talent and awfully a lot of money to do it.
Yeah. So suddenly the production becomes less costly, so more people can get involved, so more things will start to happen.
Yeah.
That's the main driver right now. What do you think?
It really, the barrier of entry becomes much smaller and so you can have. I'm not saying everybody can be an artist, no, but still, perhaps everybody can try. You do not need to have those technical skills anymore, and so you have much more people being able to create content.
A lot of people don't want to create content, so not everybody does.
Yeah, as mentioned, so it will definitely transform the content production pipeline, especially when we're thinking about generating images, generating highlights, reels, generating clips, synthetic media, so you could even quickly now spin up a synthetic news presenter and then present the news or whatever content you want in multiple different languages. So I think there's also a real value around generative AI quickly enabling companies to make content more inclusive. At the same time, obviously, behind it sits a huge data analytics engine, and generative and AI in general provides new ways to segment your audiences and to understand their behaviors, and also the models, that you could build or hopefully are already building could be constantly learning around what content your audience is like, and then automatically spin up new content, spin up new products, spin up new interactive experiences. So I think there's a lot of really exciting things happening in that space.
And actually, a lot of those are embedded in the robots editor at the moment. So if you open up, you can do textures with AI and you can do script.
Yeah, no, the tools are being implemented in Adobe and in all the editing software immediately, right? It's like, I've never seen something move into different layers of the whole tech stack so quickly. It starts there. And the interesting thing is training an AI model is hugely expensive. So So there's not that many companies that do it. So there's huge companies, and then the people right now online trying out stuff are artists, freelancers, small companies. So that's interesting to see as well, this dichotomy.
It's also interesting how the community and infrastructure around that is changing. As you're saying, traditionally model development was quite expensive, but now we're seeing mass models sort of like emerging, which is model as a service, so that allows companies to not having to build their own models, but to use already existing models and spin them up really quickly, and also for them to embed them or integrate them with live apps, for example.
Go ahead. Transformation inside our companies too, because people were used to build stuff by themselves, and now there are more and more tools just on the market we can use, and even journalists can use the tools. They do not need any more our technical development to build the tool.
Yeah, and there, I don't know how deeply you guys are all into this, but there you do see that you have the open AI, which is not open at all, it's closed, I mean it's proprietary, and you have a European company, Stable Diffusion, which is much more open, so they have an open source model, and you can do much more things there yourself than with the open AI model. Anyway, we have to run this up. Everybody in this room, I think some people think like, oh, interesting, super interesting. Other people think like, oh, come on, basically, where's the connection? What would you tell them to do or see next? I mean, what should they experiment with?
I showed that video, the robot video within company, and I got criticism like, why are those so ugly? Why they are Lego blocks? And I got a lot of energy from that discussion, and I realized that we are in a kind of business of beautiful people, and metaverse is about like true identity in a way that you don't even have a gender when you are born in the metaverse, and that's something that might be really interesting for the next generation. Like I'm so fed up with like social media beauty standards and stuff like that. So let's go to a place where you have to be a Lego block.
So the advice is sit next to your kid, play Roblox for an hour with them, or Minecraft or anything. Just see what they're doing up there. What would you recommend?
But that's exactly what I wanted to say. Just have a look at what your children are doing and do it with them, and you will understand what will be the use case of news, of entertainment tomorrow.
There you go. Last one for you, Melanie.
Brilliant. So with my innovation hat on, I would say definitely run as many structured experiments as possible and continue learning using some of the tools and platforms that we mentioned. But also I would advise to look at case studies and also familiarize yourselves with the emerging business models, because the metaverse economy is huge and there are novel ways coming up to monetize it. So looking at examples like Ifland by SK Telecom, they have a membership participatory model for their metaverse environment, which gets creators to create avatars, to create costumes for them. They reward participation within their space. They're even creating a digital wallet. So there's a whole new ecosystem emerging that can be monetized and is set up to tap into the needs of those audiences. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, basically hire some art school dropouts and you're good to go. Anyway, thank you so much for this insight into the metaverse.